In the heart of a dense forest, a group of old college friends reunited for their annual camping trip. This year, they had chosen an isolated spot near a rumored haunted lake, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to watch over them. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and a hint of apprehension about camping near such a place. As the first night enveloped the forest, the friends gathered around the campfire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They shared laughs and stories of the past, but as the night deepened, an unsettling silence crept over them. The usual sounds of the forest, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, were eerily absent. Jake, always the thrill-seeker of the group, proposed a midnight stroll around the lake. Despite some hesitations, the allure of adventure proved too tempting. Armed with flashlights and a mix of courage and fear, they set off into the dark woods. As they neared the lake, a dense fog began to roll over the surface of the water, and the temperature dropped sharply. The beam of their flashlights barely penetrated the thick mist. Suddenly, Ellie, who was leading the group, stopped dead in her tracks. Her light had caught something unusual, a small old rowboat, gently bobbing in the water with no one inside. Curiosity overcame their fear, and they decided to investigate. As they approached the boat, they heard a faint whispering sound, like voices murmuring from the depths of the lake. The whispers grew louder, and the group could distinctly hear their names being called, beckoning them closer. Fascinated and terrified, they watched as the boat seemed to move closer to the shore on its own. Without warning, Jake stepped into the water, drawn by the voices. His friends shouted for him to come back, but he seemed entranced, moving deeper into the lake. In a frantic effort to save him, two of the friends waded into the water after him. But just as suddenly as it began, the whispering stopped, and the fog lifted. Jake was nowhere to be seen. The lake had swallowed him up without a trace. The remaining friends scrambled back to the campsite, their minds reeling from the night's events. Dawn brought no comfort, only the stark realization that Jake was gone. They notified the authorities, but searches turned up nothing. No trace of Jake, nor any sign of the mysterious rowboat was ever found. The friends left the forest with heavy hearts, their annual reunions forever marked by the haunting loss. They never returned to the haunted lake, and they never spoke of that night again, each carrying their own silent burden of the chilling whispers that had called them into the dark waters. On the edge of a dense forest in Oregon, a group of friends decided to camp near an old abandoned logging camp. The camp was said to be cursed by the locals, with stories of loggers who vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. Despite the ominous warnings, the friends, fueled by curiosity and a love for the supernatural, pitched their tents as dusk fell, the forest enveloping them in its shadowy embrace. As they settled in, the crackle of the campfire blended with the rustling of leaves. Eric, the group's unofficial storyteller, began recounting the tales of the disappeared loggers, their spirits rumored to still wander the forest, searching for the way back to their earthly lives. The group listened, their eyes wide, as the wind seemed to carry whispers of names and distant cries for help. Later that night, after the stories had set a chill upon them, Mia suggested they use a spirit board to contact the spirits of the loggers. Skeptical but intrigued, they gathered around, placing their fingers lightly on the planchette. At first, nothing happened, and some chuckled nervously, ready to dismiss the idea. But as the fire dwindled, the planchette jerked to life, moving swiftly across the board, spelling out, "Leave now!" The air grew thick, and a fog rolled in from the depths of the forest, chilling them to the bone. Laughing it off, they decided to pack up the board and settle in for the night. However, Sarah, one of the group, was visibly shaken, insisting she could hear footsteps circling their campsite. The others assured her it was just animals, perhaps curious deer, but the unease had settled deep within them all. Unable to sleep, Sarah stepped out of her tent for some air, the fog now so dense she could barely see the trees surrounding their camp. The others heard her tent unzip, but paid no mind until they heard a sharp, panicked scream cut through the night. Rushing out, they found Sarah's tent empty, her footprints leading into the thick fog towards the old logging camp. Frantically, they followed, calling her name into the obscured night. As they approached the ruins of the logging camp, the fog began to dissipate, revealing the old, decrepit machinery and fallen logs. But of Sarah, there was no sign. Her footprints stopped abruptly at the edge of a small clearing, as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The night passed in a blur of fear and confusion as they searched the area, but as dawn broke, it became clear that Sarah was gone. Authorities were notified, and a search was conducted, but no trace of her was ever found. The group left the forest heartbroken and bewildered, the echoes of the spirit board's warning haunting them. The forest remained a place of mystery, its secrets and spirits hidden beneath the thick canopy, and Sarah's disappearance another tragic tale whispered among the towering trees. In the remote stretches of the Pine Barrens, a group of friends set out for a weekend of camping, eager to escape the hustle of city life. The campsite was secluded, encircled by dense forests and under a canopy of ancient pines that whispered with the slightest breeze. As night fell on their first day, the group gathered around the campfire, their faces flickering in the light. They laughed and shared stories, but as the hours passed, a sense of unease began to settle over them. The woods seemed unnaturally silent, devoid of the usual sounds of nocturnal creatures. Suddenly, the fire sputtered as a chilling gust swept through the campsite. The temperature dropped sharply, and the group huddled closer, their mirth replaced by apprehension. That's when Jenna, one of the campers, noticed something odd about the shadows cast by the fire. They seemed to move independently of their sources, twisting and writhing against the trunks of the pines. Pointing it out, she whispered, "Do you see that? The shadows are wrong." Her friends looked, and what they saw chilled them to the bone. The shadows were indeed moving, creeping slowly towards their circle. Panic set in, but Mark, trying to be rational, insisted it must be a trick of the light, an optical illusion caused by the fire. To prove his point, he walked towards one of the moving shadows, his own silhouette merging with it. But as he did, his laughter stopped abruptly, swallowed by a sudden darkness. He didn't scream. He didn't make a sound. In a blink, he was gone, as if the shadow had devoured him. Terrified, the rest of the group backed away, their eyes wide with horror. They watched as the shadows retreated to the edge of the firelight, quivering as if alive. No one dared to speak. The fire now seemed their only protection, a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness. Without a word, they agreed to keep the fire burning bright, feeding it continuously throughout the night. They took turns watching, too afraid to sleep, jumping at every crack and rustle in the woods. As dawn broke, the shadows receded with the darkness, and the forest sounds returned. Exhausted and shaken, the friends packed up their camp in silence. What had happened to Mark remained unspoken, a question none dared to answer. They left the Pine Barrens as quickly as they could, the morning light doing little to warm them or ease their fears. The woods had changed for them, no longer a place of refuge but a reminder of their fragility and the darkness that awaited in the unwatched corners of the world. They never returned to the forest, and they never found Mark. His disappearance remained a mystery, as did the true nature of the shadows that haunted their campsite that fateful night. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a group of friends set up camp for a weekend of hiking and relaxation. The area was known for its breathtaking views and abandoned coal mines, which, according to local lore, were haunted by the spirits of miners who perished in collapses long ago. The first day passed with laughter and stories, as the group trekked through the woods, exploring the rugged beauty of the mountains. As night fell, they gathered around the campfire, the glow of the flames casting long shadows among the trees. Curiosity about the haunted mines grew as the night deepened, fueled by the eerie howling of the wind through the trees. Emboldened by the spirit of adventure, and perhaps a few drinks, Tom, the most daring of the group, proposed a midnight hike to the nearest mine entrance, which was rumored to be particularly active with paranormal sightings. With flashlights in hand and a mix of excitement and fear, the group made their way to the old mine, its entrance marked by a rusted, creaking sign warning of danger. The air grew colder as they approached, and an unsettling mist seemed to rise from the ground, enveloping their feet. Standing at the entrance, The group hesitated. The mine's dark maw loomed before them, an invitation to the unknown. Tom, with a mix of bravado and curiosity, stepped forward, his flashlight piercing the darkness. The others reluctantly followed, their lights flickering along the damp, rocky walls. As they ventured deeper, the air thickened, and a faint echo of pickaxes against stone could be heard. The sounds of the long-dead miners seemed to draw them further into the labyrinth of tunnels. Suddenly, Tom's flashlight flickered and went out. Panic ensued as the group tried to find him in the darkness, their voices echoing off the mine walls. After a tense few minutes, Tom's light came back on, but he was nowhere to be seen. His flashlight lay on the ground, casting an eerie beam into the empty darkness. The group called out for him, their voices desperate, but only the sound of their own echoes returned. Fearing the worst, they hurried back to the surface, the weight of the mountain pressing down upon them. When they reached the entrance, they realized that the mist had thickened, obscuring their path back to the campsite. Lost and frightened, they wandered until dawn, when the mist finally lifted, revealing the path home. Authorities were called, and a search was launched, but no trace of Tom was ever found. His disappearance remained a mystery, attributed by some to the spirits of the mine, claimed as one of their own. The group never returned to the mountains, and the haunted mines were left undisturbed, shrouded in their ghostly mist, guarding their secrets and lost souls in the depths below.